All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Environment Subcommittee 3 days before crossover. So, thanks everyone for their flexibility about timing. As you know, since floor session starts today at noon, which is around when we were going to have our 12:30 subcommittee meeting, we had to change our timing, as did all the other subcommittees. So thank you for your flexibility. There's two subcommittee members, delegates Boyce and Ambry, have Baltimore City delegation, so they won't be able to join. Delegate Ruth is Baltimore County delegation. She'll be joining shortly, hopefully, because there's just one item on the county delegation, county delegation agenda. So with that, wanted to take a look at the updated House Bill 1207. So let's start with that first. And then after that, we'll review the amendments, Delegate Vaughn's proposed amendments to House Bill 1069. And I don't think we'll be considering them and actually voting on them at this meeting. We may reconvene later today for a vote on those if everyone's good with them. Okay, 1207. That's the Environmental Justice and Sustainability Community bill reforming the commission. So I realized this was late last night, so you may not have had a chance to see the reprint, but if Kristen, if you could update us as to the change or changes in the bill since the last time we looked at it, which was last subcommittee meeting.
Yeah, sure. So on page 5 of the reprint, that's where the bill is altering the duties of the commission. And the change in this reprint is that the amendments from last time would have required the commission to recommend options for establishing a process to require MDE to consult with the commission prior to adopting policies, plans, actions, decisions, or regulations. And that language has been taken out of the bill.
Right. And the reason why that language was taken out was because Tyler with MDE had raised the question as to how that would work, that it just, the requirement, which the language seemed to say that MDE would need to consult with the commission on basically every decision. So that seemed to be kind of pretty unwieldy. And I guess Tyler's not on the call, is he?
No, he's not.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Dana,
Yeah.
I can invite him.
He knows about the meeting. He has a conflict. He said
Okay.
he'd try to jump in if he could. I'm just not sure, how long his meeting. It's a 9 o'clock meeting as well.
Yeah. Delegate Gilchrist.
I don't know if we have enough people here. I was thinking that maybe I ought to move the amendments. Or did we?
Sure.
Did
Let's see.
done
We
the
do have,
amendments?
there are 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait a minute. Let me count this. There are 5 of us, so that is the majority of the subcommittee. Having trouble counting up to even 5 this morning. So, so we do have a quorum, so we can, we can act. But before, Delegate Gilchrist, if you could hold that. Ariel King wanted to recognize from the advocates to comment.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Hi, good morning.
I just wanted to speak on that particular amendment, noting that the consultation was only regarding significant plans and policies, while that does not have specific language to determine what significant means. The advocates are not suggesting that the commission has to consult with MDE for every single decision or plan that is made that may have an environmental impact, which of course would be all decisions made by MDE. So I just wanted to make that distinction that it was regarding significant plans and policies and not all. and hope that that might change your considerations for adding or removing that amendment. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, Ariel, the language didn't refer to significant. It just said, referred to policies, plans, actions, decisions, or regulations. So Delegate Boyce and Delegate Bridges felt that it was just better to take it out. So I think it's up to the subcommittee as to whether to adopt these amendments, but I think the sense was, let's just take that out to make it so there wasn't any ambiguity about it. Anyway, but thank you for your feedback. Any questions from the subcommittee members about the amendments? Okay, Delegate Gilchrist, did you want to make a motion to adopt them?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the amendments.
Okay, is there a second? Well, I'll second. Okay. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So does someone want to move the bill as amended? Delegate Otto, did you want to say something? You're on mute. I'm sorry.
I was just saying that I was still looking at them. That's why I didn't second them for that.
Okay. Do you want another couple minutes to
I
discuss
trust
them?
what you've told me, so that's fine.
Okay.
Move along.
Okay.
Okay.
Second.
And I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor of the bill as amended say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Bill passes as amended. Thank you. Then let's move on to Delegate Stewart's House Bill 1069. Vaughn, since you're on the subcommittee and you can best speak to what the amendments do and what you've taken out, why don't I ask you to do that?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this bill, when it came in, was a pretty ambitious bill dealing with private well water. And you may remember the hearing that, basically a lot of the wells, especially on the shore, but really statewide, have dangerous levels of contaminants, like, for example, nitrates. And so the original bill was kind of this ambitious thing where we were going to find a revenue source and we were going to try to create a subsidy program to help folks defray the cost of getting their wells tested and getting their wells fixed. That discussion still needs to happen about how we create that sort of system. And I'm going to work with MDE and the advocates over the interim to make that happen. But until that happens, we've amended the bill down to basically the most simple provision that the advocates think would still nevertheless be a step forward. And so the bill is amended, just does one simple thing. It requires landlords with a private well to test the well every 3 years. The EPA, by the way, recommends testing every 1 year. So we thought 3 years was pretty reasonable. And they have to notify the tenant when they test it, or if it's a new tenant, they have to notify the tenant of the last time they tested it once the tenant arrives, once the tenant signs the lease. And then they have, if the well is contaminated, and I have some new amendments that I've sent to Delegate Stein and to Kristen about what it means for a well to be contaminated from the original language of the bill. But basically, if the well is contaminated, then the landlord would be required to notify MDE and the local health department, and then they would also be required to remediate the well. And those the remediation part is probably already required under like an implied warranty of habitability. I mean, I think that a landlord would probably be in a little bit of trouble if they knew that their well was poisoned and they did nothing about it anyway. But the important thing here is that I've spoken with all the landlord associations, MMHA, realtors, they're fine with this. I sent an email to Tyler, who I see just joined. MDE is fine with this. So I think that we've gotten this bill as, thanks, Tyler, down to sort of a essential enough provision here that it's a kind of a compromise product that I hope we can move forward on.
Okay. Yeah, and let's see. Do you want to just read how you define contamination?
Yes. Let me pull up the email real fast. So
this is language which we haven't sent out to subcommittee members, but we will after the meeting so you can see it. And
we just retained basically the original definition of contamination from the bill before we struck it in the amendment. And so contamination would be defined as, quote unquote, a substance exceeds the maximum contaminant level set by the EPA for drinking water quality for that substance. So basically, if the EPA says that's a harmful level, that would be considered contamination. And then secondly, a harmful level of any other contaminant as determined by the department. So that would give MDE flexibility down the road if they wanted to issue a regulation of something that maybe the EPA had not addressed for some reason, then they could do that, and that would be a contamination as well.
Okay. All right. And Tower, I realize that you're, this has been moving quickly. So you have, it's maybe the first time you've seen this language, but does that sound reasonable to you in terms of the definition of contamination? We can also send it to you as well, but.
Yeah, I think it sounds reasonable. If you wouldn't mind sending it to me just so I can confirm with our staff. This
Sure.
isn't my area of expertise.
Okay.
Yeah, and that the MDE part of that was in the original bill too.
Okay.
So it's new in the sense that it wasn't in the it's not in the amendment that everyone has, but it's old in the sense that it was in the original bill.
Okay, so Delegate Stewart, just to recap, you're taking all the provisions out of the bill, keeping in this provision that says that an owner of residential rental property that's served by a private water supply well shall test the water every 3 years, disclose to the tenant the results of the testing, and when the test shows that the water is contaminated, have to notify MDE and the local health department and fix it within 30 days. That basically, okay.
Yep, pretty straightforward.
All right. So again, we don't want to move on the amendments or the bill at this meeting. Just want to discuss this. Do folks have questions for the bill sponsor? Yeah, Delegate Otto.
Do we have a revised fiscal note on that? That still is, to me, a bit burdensome for the risks that we involve. There's some suspicion of contamination or potential, but I think that's fair to make the test, but it's requiring every 3 years still seems to me quite burdensome to.
Well, it would be a test done at the expense of the property owner. So there wouldn't be a fiscal note in the sense that the state would not be incurring any additional costs.
But somebody's paying for the test. I mean,
right. The landlords would pay for the test, which would be about $100 every 3 years. And while that may seem like a lot, it may seem like, oh, we're hitting the landlords again. The reason the landlords are fine with this is honestly, they really want their members to be doing this because the landlords are exposed to a lot of liability on the back end if they're not doing these regular testings, because if a well ends up being contaminated and they didn't test and they weren't, diligent about this, a tenant could file a lawsuit against them for millions and millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Landlords are fine with this. They say landlords should be doing this anyway, even more regularly than 3 years. And so putting this law into effect will sort of push landlords in the right direction so that they are not exposed to, a bunch of lawsuits.
Still think
Delegate
it's
Otto, I know
cost
that.
and a burden, so I'm going to have a challenge with it. And,
Say that again, Delegate Otto. I'm sorry.
I'm responsible for 3 or 4 wells and not necessarily residential, and they're not leased.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I know that Delegate Stewart has reached out to MMHA, but Delegate Otto.
And the realtors too. Yeah, and the realtors have a lot of properties out on the shore with private wells, and so it was important for me to check in with them. And I spoke to Bill Castelli, and he said this is reasonable. So I don't think that any.
All right, I'll listen out for them, but I still have reservations. But I'm just sharing that with you. I'm not a well testing either by any means. I always still I like carrots and not sticks. So this seemed to try to do that, but requirements bother me.
Yeah, and hopefully one day we can put in the more robust program to actually pay these people to help defray the cost. That's what we still got to work on, and I'm excited to speak with Tyler and others about that over the interim.
And I guess there's no specific penalty provision in here if the landlord doesn't do the testing. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Other questions?
Hey, Vaughn. Oh, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Vaughn, I remember at the hearing, you had a lot of information about how many wells were in the state and what the odds are that they have bad water. Could you just like refresh my memory a little bit on that?
Yeah, so it depends on what part of the state you're talking about. But in certain parts of the shore, the current data that we have, and we don't have good data. I mean, that's the part of the reason that this one provision of the bill would be useful from just a data collection perspective. But right now, it could be the case that about 10% of the wells on the shore have at least somewhat harmful levels of contamination. And that maybe 2 or 3 of them, 2, 3, 4, 5%, in some parts of the shore have deadly, levels of contamination that if consumed, especially by a young person, because what we're really worried about here the most are high levels of nitrates. Because if a toddler or a baby ingests relatively high levels of nitrates, then blue baby syndrome is a likely result, which results in essentially imminent death for the baby.
And did you say other states have robust programs?
They do, yeah. I mean, so something like 15 or 20 other states require basically what this bill does, which is testing from a property owner. But there are a handful of states, especially those that have a lot of private wells, and Maryland actually does have a lot of private wells compared to many other states. I think we have more than, for example, Pennsylvania, but per capita. But several other states, especially in the Midwest, have and especially like farming states, have instituted more robust programs and basically found dedicated revenue sources to help property owners defray the costs. I mean, the problem is sometimes folks, they don't want to test because it's $100, but then the big problem is if you test, you're a little bit worried what you're going to find, because then on the back end sometimes the remediation costs are very high.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, sure.
Well, programs are a lot different in different places because of the hydrology too. And we're fortunate that Maryland has been aggressive in its well construction and permitting programs. And there's no residential well going in today in an unconfined aquifer. And there's where you're going to have the nitrate problems on these surface aquifers. And, I grew up with a pitcher pump that we used to have near a field that was the best, coolest, clearest water you'll find. But there was potential for it. It wasn't about 20 feet. And now we have typically more 120, 130 in my area. And that varies as you move around.
Yeah. Yeah. Really where we rank near the bottom is basically protections and tracking of private. Mm-hmm. So we're actually, the study from the Center for Progressive Reform put us with the 4th fewest protections and 4th least amount of data in the country. So that's what we're lacking, is we just don't have a whole lot of information. And that's why I have to kind of hem and haw about what percentage we're talking about, because we just really don't have enough information.
Well, the old fashioned guy just washing in a well doesn't exist anymore.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we'll hold this and we'll send out the updated amendments to House Bill 1069. And Kristen, do you think you would have a chance to send out a reprint as well?
Sure. So do you want me just to combine all of Delegate Stewart's amendments and to not have them separate?
Yes.
Okay.
Great. And hopefully we'll find a time if what's that, Delegate Gil? You're on mute. Jim, you're on mute.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Happens to all of us.
What's the
Oh,
topic?
Like you were talking to us.
No, he was ordering his lunch. Can you get an extra Whopper for me, please? I appreciate it. Thanks.
Please, for all of us. Yeah. So
They just thought you were talking to them, but you might
I
have.
thought,
Phone.
yeah.
Oh, sorry, I was not. No.
Oh. Well, I was about to say that the good,
Slighted.
I'll send a text to each of you to apologize.
well, while we were talking to someone else, I said that the good chair of the Natural Resources Committee, Subcommittee, I'm sure would be willing to accommodate his schedule so that we could get a quick meeting in at some point this afternoon, just to potentially approve the revised 1069.
I don't make a move without Kristen or Patrick's okay.
No, that's probably
I
the
only
way
have one bill,
to do
so
things.
leave it to Patrick, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, right. So Kristen, it would be,
I have to be in both.
and Dana, you and I are on that subcommittee, and Charles, you're on that subcommittee. It's almost like we
Yeah.
have a joint subcommittee meeting.
Oh, that's an idea. Really. Sort of like when TV shows have like cats from two programs on a particular show.
Yes,
Yeah.
stars.
Yeah. No,
Be Family Feud, is that?
Right.
I believe we can work that out. I mean, schedule is floor at noon, right? And then
Right.
committee hearing and then committee voting. So you just want to fit in what a quick vote when
Yes.
when we basically have everybody.
Right.
Yeah, I think you could do
We can
that right before
figure
me.
something out.
And Kristen, I think or everybody, I think the local government subcommittee is meeting also at the same time. Anybody know?
I think it is.
You're
I think
right.
it is at the end of the day.
And so I would think that this would move so fast if everybody shows. And
Right.
that we could do that. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll figure out a exact timing for that. Hi, Delegate Ruth. Just as an update.
Hi,
we-
Mr. Chair.
We approved House Bill 1207 as amended, and we discussed the amendments to House Bill 1069. We were just talking about a time to meet again later today after session to approve the, or consider approving the revised House Bill 1069.
So the schedule, Delegate Stein, at the moment, natural resources is scheduled for 4:30, local government for 5.
Okay. So maybe, Jim, potentially right after natural resources, we could have a quick meeting.
Yeah. Oh, no, I think yours would be so quick, it would make sense to have it before.
Oh, have it go first. Okay.
Yeah, because
So potentially,
it would be a bunch of people waiting around for a real quick meeting.
okay.
And there's just no telling how long natural resources will go.
Yeah. Okay. So we can tentatively say 4:30, and maybe when we send out the reprint for 1069, we can confirm that. Thanks, Jim.
Okay.
All right. So with that, I think we're done. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well,
Thank you.
thank you. We'll be seeing each other again later on today. Thank you. See you.